And Stu on the mic, broadcasting through the night, talking F1, getting every fact kind of right. From the grid to the finish, they're all in. Top Step Podcast, let the race begin.
I was going to quote Peter Ellenbogen and say a little bit of shush, please, but we are on a podcast, so we have to do some talking. Let's get on with it. Welcome to the 22nd installment of your favourite podcast, The Top Step. I'm Stuart Brown. Of course, I'm joined. Welcome after what was a wet Spa weekend. Eventually, thank you to the one person on TikTok that pointed out that it wasn't raining on Saturday when we said it was going to rain. You are a legend. Thanks for tuning in and watching. But we did get the rain in the end, and all it did was establish to me is that
it's kind of just wet.
Formula One drivers are not amphibious
No.
because apparently we no longer race in the rain because, to quote Ferrari directly, it must be water because it is wet. But anyway, let's get the show off to the right start by cracking open a can of juice and get things underway, mate. A typical Spa race impacted by weather caught in the trees of the Ardennes forest. Let's start right at the top and have our usual brief chat about the sprint race. The sprint race is not something that we get totally into if you're new to the podcast, but we'll give it a little glimmer of hope. Max Verstappen taking out the win after qualifying P2 behind our man Oscar Piastri and his lap record qualifying effort.
It was a huge effort. I think he took almost a second out of Hamilton's previous record, which was just huge. Obviously, with cars and stuff getting faster and the track layout different a little bit, but almost a full second is just crazy.
Huge amount of time, as you said, to make up in any form of racing these days, particularly where the rules are so tight. But to smash it by over a second, a fantastic effort from Oscar. But of course, not to be the toe down the straight, proving too strong. Actually, in both races, but in the sprint race in the dry, Max got a ripper start. And managed to use the toe to his advantage and then took off into the distance.
It was a huge move. Really, really good. Obviously, ballsy up Rouge on coldish tyres. So really, really good move. And shows the power of the not even the DRS because there was none at that stage, but the power of the draft from the car in front.
Yeah, absolutely. And it'll be interesting to see how Spa changes as a racetrack, not the track itself, but when we do go back there next under the new regulations, of course, with the push to pass as well as DRS, whether or not we'll see any change in how the race plays out at the track. Obviously, weather being such a big impact there, but with the nice long straights, and as you know, the way that track plays out, it's sort of got two absolutely fantastic passing opportunities into the bus stop and, of course, the end of the main straight as well. I'm going to be interested to see how that plays out next year when the regs change, when we actually get back to Spa, because I don't think it's on the calendar next year. I'll have to double check. Getting into the main race itself, let's have a look at qualifying. There was a few surprises over the weekend for me in terms of qualifying, and they certainly didn't play out into the race when I watched it overnight. If we start having a look at Q3, probably not too many surprises in terms of the way that Q3 played out. What about yourself? Did you see anything there unusual?
Seeing the two Racing Bulls cars in Q3 was really, really promising to see.
Done it again. I've gone back to front. I meant to be talking about Q1. In Q1, yeah, we'll get to that. You've jumped ahead of me because of my terrible organisational skills. Q1, any surprises in Q1 that grabbed your attention?
To be fair, seeing the pace for the Aston Martins in the sprint race, obviously dropped off a little bit, both of them sort of 19th and 20th. That was probably the biggest surprise. I thought Alonso especially would have been pretty hot on the heels into Q3. But yeah, seeing him out, second last was pretty harsh.
Yeah, that was the only thing I was going to jump on as well, is just I thought that Aston Martin sort of flipped themselves on their heads in terms of the qualifying results that they got. The two last placed cars. I wasn't expecting that. Kimi Antonelli probably was the other one, albeit a lot of the post-race commentary between him and George now kind of puts it into perspective around probably the car dropping off more so than him dropping off in his first season. And then, of course, the bigger one was Lewis getting
I
that
was
off
about to say,
track.
what are your thoughts on Hamilton's lap deletion?
I mean, I don't think there's any question that it was a deletion. I saw some fans saying, how is that an off track? The rules are pretty clear. You have to have a tire inside, or some of the tire inside that white line, and albeit it's sim racing and all that sort of stuff, it's so easy up there to get bumped and pushed across and just get too much over the center of that curb and get that off track strike that there's no question that it was. My question probably more was, why was he having to do that lap at that time in the car to make it out of Q1 when he probably already should have been out of Q1? And of course, he made a mistake, which he admitted. He admitted that he didn't have a great weekend in the car, that the car was stronger than the results that he got in
Well,
quali and in a sprint.
yeah, obviously there was a few things with that and with the car. Obviously, a new power unit, and we'll talk about that in the race. But a new power unit going into the race, starting back. So, the car could have had some issues with it, but surprising to see someone who until this weekend held the qualifying lap record do something like that in the car. It was just I always get a little bit confused when I see, and obviously everyone has their moments and everyone has their days, but seeing Lewis sort of in that position where it's like a one lap dash and then he makes a mistake coming from it. So obviously the car might have had some issues with the new power unit, but seeing him in that circumstance where it's a one push lap and sort of got that deleted, it was pretty. It just didn't feel right, especially at a track like that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, unfortunately, the rules be the rules, and he got the strike, which helped Carlos Sainz. Again, had a very, very underwhelming weekend in the Williams overall, but he only snuck into Q2 as a consequence of that penalty for Lewis. The one time where a penalty was applied properly, so it didn't wreck somebody else's qualifying when they did it, at the end of Q3 or something like that. So Q2, again, probably not really anything other than that for me that was surprising. We've seen the Sauber boys probably struggle a little bit in quali and then, produce good strategy. And I can't believe we're saying this if we look back from the start of the season, but produce decent strategy and actually move themselves up during the race. And there was a little bit of that over the weekend, but I probably wasn't surprised to see Nico down in 14th because their one lap pace hasn't been their strength this season.
Seeing him into Q2 was promising, and seeing that they might have their sort of quality setups better, because obviously that's a big forward. We're usually seeing him 19th and 20th sort of thing, because he just can't get that one lap pace out of the car, and Bortoletto's sort of been the same in previous weeks, in previous races, where it's just not being able to extract that one lap pace out of the car. With what you're saying, seeing obviously Hulkenberg into Q2 was really, really good. Obviously Bortoletto was there as well, but promising for the team.
Yeah, definitely, definitely that. I was a little surprised to see Gasly into Q2. Probably thought that he might not have quite made it into Q2 with the times that he did, and again they had a difficult weekend. They had a decent sprint race, but yeah, they had another difficult qualifying session, and Haas just missing out again.
Yeah, it always seems to, like, obviously when other contenders, like you would think week in week out that like Antonelli and Hamilton are going to be into Q2, so that'll push like the likes of Gasly out. So to see him go through, probably more circumstantial than a result of his own doing.
Yeah.
Having those people out, having both the Aston Martins out in Q1, a Ferrari and a Mercedes, it kind of opens the door for those other drivers that we don't really, especially Gasly, see to come into Q2.
Yeah, I think that's a really good observation, actually. It's probably it helps with how Nico got there as well. So, and then we move into Q3, and the biggest surprise for me was Yuki Tsunoda. Getting into P7, obviously, look, Red Bull would have thought going into the race this morning that they had made absolutely the right decision in getting rid of Horner and the changes that they were made, because for the first time this season, they had all four of their cars, in inverted
No,
commas,
they're two completely
two
separate
completely
teams.
different teams. They had all four of their cars in the top 10. And, Yuki out qualified both of the Racing Bulls, which he hasn't done before.
He
Um,
did get the new floor upgrade before Spa, which was not meant to go to him, but obviously wanted to bring the cars to equal playing field. So
Yeah, and that was a fair point. I think that it might have been Martin Brundle who made during the commentary to say no, actually it wasn't. It was the world champion.
Nico Rosberg.
Thank you. It was Nico Rosberg who said that that Yuki had probably not felt like he was part of the team under Christian, because it was all about Max, and that by giving him the upgrades and making the changes that they have, that it sort of brought him into it, and he paid him back with a decent qualifying effort. So a big surprise for mine, but a good result for him.
Just to touch on that before we skate past it, it is fair to assume that the other three Red Bull drivers or Racing Bulls Red Bull drivers probably don't feel the love as much. Only Hadjar's in his own car, and Max is in his own car, but the car that Lawson's in was Yuki's car. The car that Yuki in was Lawson's car. Both of them have been crashed. Both of them have been smashed. They've had old parts, new parts, like a little bit of bitzer, and it's been that way for a couple of seasons in those cars. So you're definitely right in sort of feeling that, oh, I'm actually here, I'm actually doing a job. They're actually giving me the upgrades that I need to try and perform. So obviously touched few of these positions in the race, but good quality. Yeah, from Yuki, that was the other big surprise.
Obviously, Max, they'd set that car up to run in the wet, so he struggled a little bit with straight line speed against the qualifying effort in the sprint race, and that bore out into qualifying. And then, yeah, obviously, what we're going to start saying now is the usual suspects at the front of the grid with Lando and Oscar, and then Charles doing a good job this weekend in the Ferrari as well to pop that into P3 but he still popped it into P3 to get things underway out of qualifying.
Him and George must have rock paper scissors. Who gets to be third for a little while? Because George has sort of dropped off a little bit, and we're seeing more of Charles. So
Yeah, well, and they did say that again, that that drop off in the Mercedes pace is not because they're driving worse; it's because everyone else has got a little bit quicker with the upgrades that they produce. So, of course, the second weekend that Ferrari's had that new rear end in the car, and maybe they're just coming to terms with it a little bit. So, it's interesting to see. When we say coming to terms with it a little bit, they were still nearly half a second off the pole lap.
do we talking about getting to terms with it? Do we not talk about the snap rear oversteer that Hamilton got going into the bus stop?
Yeah, well, but not him alone. That issue that he had, that was a rear like axle hop,
Yeah.
where the rear car the rear brakes locked up, which is unusual because generally, obviously, your bias is set to the front. So to lock your rear brakes up, and get axle hop as well while you're downshifting, generally the cars are pretty well balanced, so they don't have those issues. But he certainly did.
It was an axle hop like it was a welded Commodore diff.
Yeah.
Like it just went.
Nanging some single peggers
Absolutely.
down at Spa. So yeah, look, qualifying overall, not really too many surprises, but some good results there for a couple of drivers that needed it. Then we get to this morning, and you and I had made jokes about this beforehand, and one of our mates had put up a picture of himself getting prepared to watch the race as the broadcast started, and I saw that and thought, you know what, that's a rookie mistake because it's at Spa. And
It's raining.
it's raining. So before I started watching it, I checked the length of the broadcast, and when I saw that it was nearly 5 hours long, I saw that there'd been some issues with the weather. So I want to before we get into the race, we'll jump around a little bit here. I want to get your opinion about why Pirelli get asked to cart hundreds of wet weather tires around the globe if we aren't going to race in the wet?
At this point, I don't know. If you were coming new into Formula One this season, you would think that the intermediate is the wet tire, that there is no other tire. That's it. But when the tracks, after doing so many laps, when the track's too dry for intermediates, and then so they turn off pretty quickly when it dries out. But why are we not at least attempting something with the wet weather tire when we've got people that are driving going, yeah, it's good, let's go, and we're still behind the safety car?
Look, so I get the reason why they're concerned about it. So obviously in this particular case, and I jest a little bit with the wet weather tire, the wet weather tire puts out something like 80 liters of water a second. So I get that when they're using it, its visibility is terrible. I think the intermediate they mentioned was somewhere around 40 liters a second. So there's a lot of water getting pumped out of the tires.
To be fair as well, the spray behind the intermediate tires was not very visible either.
True, but when is it ever going to be an acceptable level of visibility in the wet that we don't end up with a race being delayed by an hour because the visibility is poor? Now, the visibility in the wet with the spray is always going to be poor because it's wet.
It's poor when you're driving down the Monash at 100 k's behind a standard passenger vehicle. Like it's going so much faster with the open wheel. It's always going to be bad.
So the question comes down to safety. And as I said, I understand that there was a question around the safety of the drivers, but equally, it's clearly not the worst conditions that they can be in because they're not even on the wet tire. Now, the wet tire is there to deal with standing water. Why didn't they just continue around behind the safety car to move the water for a few more laps? I mean, Lewis pitted on like lap 8 or 9 and went to intermediates. Went to slicks, went to mediums.
Yep.
So, and even he was saying, early it's drying out really quick. Obviously, Max was keen to race because his car was set up for the wet. But isn't that part of what we're in here for? Like, they're not racing through the Nordschleife in conditions where they can't see. They're racing at Spa, and like every year we get this rain at Spa. It seems every year it happens. Every year we have a rain delay. So they either need to decide that they no longer will race in the wet at all, and say, like NASCAR do, and say, well, we're going to come back tomorrow if it's raining, or they need to say that it's a sport where there's an acceptable level of risk and that they race and that it's wet and that's why they got wet tires. And then, obviously we don't want drivers to die. That's not the purpose of this either, but they have to race in the wet because it's a skill set that some of the drivers are better at than other drivers. And it makes for the entertainment of the race, not sitting there for an hour until it doesn't rain enough that it's okay for the drivers to run where like they did. I think
it's another one of those things that I can't seem to wrap my head around why it's happening this way.
Well, how do they judge the safety of it? How do they, like, you had it's in Lando's interest for them not to have raced. So he's there saying, oh, it's too dangerous. Max is saying, let's race. Lewis, who's raced more times than pretty much most of the people on the grid, said, what, it's dry or drying. So why is it so subjective around who chooses? And there's one person who chooses around whether or not they go racing. And why was there no standing start?
The standing start part, I really don't get. And I'm not sure if it was the offline off Eau Rouge and that sort of kerfuffle into Eau Rouge to get through it safely, rather than trying to 2 lanes into one type scenario up Eau Rouge in the wet. But if it's dry enough to race, then we need to go to the racing format. We need to race like we would race at any other track, or we need to go to Spa when it's only going to be sunny, and that's it.
Yep. Well, it's something that I think they need to do some work on, because as a spectator, it's it would be like them saying that AFL or soccer is only played in the dry. Now, before people jump on and say there's stadiums with roofs, yeah, there are, but the MCG hasn't got one. And it was raining on the weekend and they played the sport. So, and they can get hurt. Not killed, fair enough, but they can get hurt. So it's an all-weather sport. Formula One is an all-weather sport. Car racing is an all-weather sport, and I think they need to do some work around it because I think it was pretty poor.
So I'll post up a picture during the week, but we're doing some work with some wet weather covers that go over the wheels themselves. That just became just as horrific as the spray is now. They were like a big wheel arch over the tire, and it just became. It just shot it back. Like the thinking behind it isn't there.
Didn't it just pump? Didn't it just pump the water into the ground and then it just sprayed up in the air anyway?
Like, yes. It just deflected it and then bounced up anyway. So there was no improvement. Obviously, with the new design of the cars, they're bigger tires, all that sort of thing. But if we have a wet weather tire and it's not monsoon rain like what we see in Japan and things like that, where it's not liters of standing water.
Yeah, or like at Brazil where there was actually a path of water running down through the apex of the corner. Yep.
Yeah. As long as when that's not happening, which happy to be proven wrong, but I didn't see this at Spa.
No.
I didn't see those water collections. I didn't see the runoff. I didn't see the standing water race. And if it means that you're on the wets and you're going 20 seconds slower, then so be it, because that's when the skill set, like you're saying, comes into play.
Yeah, 100%. I think there was a little bit of standing water at Blanchimont, and they were cleaning that off.
I was going to say they had the truck out there.
Yeah,
before
and the medical car went through, and then that's the only time there was any standing water.
So then, cool, wets on and away we go.
Yeah, I'm with you. As I said, and then it becomes a management thing.
And then if you have to leave 10 seconds between you and the car in front because you can't see, and then it becomes a game of strategy in the pits when it becomes drying out to change tyres, to make it up, it becomes what it is.
Yeah, the race would have changed completely over the race today had they started at the time they were supposed to start.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tyre strategy would have come in. There would have been all that sort of stuff, which we got a little bit of, only because of the fact that the track finished drying out, not that it was, actively wet. So anyway, speaking of that, it's a perfect segue to move into some of the discussion about the race itself. Let's have a little bit of a chat about Ferrari. So obviously Lewis Hamilton, you mentioned at the top of the show, ended up taking a new motor and as a consequence started from pit lane. We had 4 cars starting from pit lane for this race. He was running down in 16th, I think 16th. And then Ferrari did the most un-Ferrari-like thing that they've done all season. And we mentioned that they needed to do this last show or the show before.
Did they have their hearing aids on?
They did. They actually listened to Lewis when he said, the track's drying out, we should switch. And he did. And he instantly went from 16th to 7th because he was something like 2 seconds a lap quicker than everybody else. So imagine if they did this more often.
It's the possibilities are endless, and I'm just starting to become a broken record here. But they've got the most successful driver on the grid in their team. Listen, he is that for a reason. Listen,
you spend a bill,
yeah.
So you should probably listen to maybe what the driver might have to say. So
maybe.
Good for them. I wondered if it was because they were distracted by all of the wet stuff, because they have been known to become distracted by the wet stuff. It was interesting that Charles didn't get wet this weekend because he didn't mention it at all.
There was no.
So they've obviously fixed his wet issue.
They didn't listen to him, however, so maybe they've changed, because he was the most angry I've ever heard.
Absolutely.
And obviously on the broadcast, we don't hear all of the radio messages, so they might have been hammering him for a little bit or not saying much for a while. But for him to come across the radio and just pretty much lose it and be like, "I know he's behind me, leave me alone."
The Crown Prince must have had the fine book out, just waiting for him to drop an F-bomb in there or something, and then he's going to write him out a notice for swearing on the team radio. But Charles did get pretty animated towards the end of the race there, and look. Max was like 2 seconds behind him when he got animated as well. He got closer after he got angry.
Yeah, absolutely. But while we are talking about Ferrari, I do also just want to mention the stream that I watched and the commentators that I was listening to. they were one particular commentator that I will leave nameless was harping on about Lewis's charge through the pack. He is 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton that started from the pits in a Ferrari. If he wasn't doing that, and obviously changing tires earlier, but if he wasn't doing those things, like he shouldn't have been. If we go quality results alone, he shouldn't have been that far back, and obviously then taking the power unit and starting from the pit. He should never have been there. So him charging through the grid past the Aston Martins that qualified 19th and 20th, and like these sort of lower grid teams, isn't much of a feat when you're on fresh slicks against intermediates in a Ferrari and you're Lewis Hamilton. They harped on about it for laps and laps and laps. And then he got stuck behind Albon and they stopped talking about it. And I was like, so he's gotten to where the car is and progressed no further because he doesn't have the tire advantage and that sort of stuff. But he should have done that. That's just what he should have done. It's not nothing to celebrate.
A previous comment, that's why he got paid a bill.
Correct. Yeah.
Like,
Can you imagine?
Because he might do something.
Can you imagine paying $1 billion and then him being stuck behind a Haas for the entire race? Like, no.
Hanging out with Veruca.
Oh, I just.
Well, I mean, and we've spoken about commentators and commentary teams before. I've finally made up my mind that Ted Kravitz is an idiot. I'm sick and tired of listening to him. I said it to you before. He's that unpopular kid that managed to get to sit on a popular kids table at school. As bad as that sounds, I always go to these school references, but it's something that I think everybody can understand. But listening to him during that hour rain delay, just crap on. It's like, this is the best thing that I've ever heard anybody talk about during a rain delay. And I'm like, mate, I tell you what, if I could reach through the TV, you would be on the other end of my hand.
Now, I think so. The likes of Martin Brundle to me is the voice of Formula One.
The pinnacle.
Correct.
Do you remember, sorry to cut you off, you remember what happened locally in Australia when they got rid of Mark Larkham off their supercars and everyone said bring him back because everyone else is a moron and you've got rid of the only person that people want to listen to? That's what would happen if they got rid of Martin Brundle and kept everybody else.
Absolutely. There's a couple of people that I can see coming through the ranks to obviously. Unfortunately, Martin won't be with us forever, but coming through the ranks. But I feel like
he's not dying. Rhys just means that
no, he won't be commentating forever.
That in the circle of life, eventually, at some stage, like we don't have some insider information that he's on his path, that the Grim Reaper is knocking at his door.
Not at all. Not at all. Just, no.
Martin might not be around for long. You better get in while you can.
Absolutely not. But understanding that, there's probably more things to his life that he might enjoy and all that sort of thing. Anyway, I feel like Kravitz, he's been around for a couple of decades and I feel like he needs to go. Like I feel, and this is why I bought Martin Brundle up. I feel like once he decides to pass to Gavilan and retire or move away from Formula One, I feel like there's a few people that need to do that as well, and not for the same reasons, because Martin Brundle will always be, when I hear his voice, I always think of Formula One, and I will listen to him. I would listen to him read me a
bedtime story.
like just crap. I just listen to it.
He's like the equivalent of listening to God damn, my mind keeps going blank whenever I need to pull up somebody's bloody name. Anyway,
yes.
The other person that we were talking about was the other commentator this weekend. I think it was Simon. I'm trying to find his name. Simon Lazenby. I think he was David Croft was the one who commentated throughout the race. So I think I think Crofty's good.
He has his moments.
Yeah, I actually really like Natalie. I think she's quite good as well. As well as Rachel. I think they're both really good. I like the crew they've got together that do the pre-show and the post-show. Just while
when they sit in the paddock.
Just while we're going off on like a complete tangent, and not even intended where we went to go with this episode. Naomi's good. Bernie's good. Bernie's underrated.
You reckon?
Yeah, I think she's good. I think she's really, really good. And I think Karoon as well needs more airtime.
Partial
Oh,
I'm very, very
because
impartial.
he's from Team India. For India Force, he drove for Force India, didn't he? He had a very limited career. I think he went for Force India. I think he might have raced for Minardi, maybe.
He didn't race for a full season.
Oh no, he very
No.
very limited. But I do like I like his telemetry video explanation stuff. I think Jensen's good. I think Nico's probably good in bits,
Yeah.
small amounts.
Yeah, no, but I don't know when they cross to Kravitz. I feel like he's not a part of the same conversation. Where whilst everyone else seems to be in the same sort of loop, he's not really in that same conversation. But anyway, I digress.
You know what? It just came to mind. He's Ralph Wiggum. He literally is Ralph Wiggum. I'm in danger, and then like ejects out the side of the bus.
Go banana!
He literally. I don't know why I didn't pick that up earlier. Anyway,
Right back on track.
we might as well get back on track because it's not raining here and we're allowed to race. So Ferrari, much improved weekend for them. We might quickly flick on then to having a look at the race results and some driver standings because we're actually halfway through the podcast and we've just talked about commentators. For those of you who are still around,
another half an hour of dribble.
but sometimes they're the best episodes.
Absolutely.
Obviously, the race results get started into the race itself eventually, and Oscar Lando was always going to be the most important part of the race because of because of potential tyre changes, yellow flags, all that sort of stuff. Leading the race, it sounds like a Ferrari thing to say, but at the end of turn one, leading the race, the most important thing that needed to happen for the entire weekend with the weather.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we always say, you can't win a race in turn one. This weekend was completely different. With the weather, with the gaps, the visibility, everything like that, it was definitely a one in turn one.
Yeah, 100%. 100% it was. And then it meant that once Lewis had made the jump and then people started to come into pit lane and make the transition across to the medium tyre, that Oscar was able to take the jump first and Lando had to do another lap and then gambled quite successfully with running the hard tyre. McLaren left that call a little late, but he made the right call and ran that hard tyre to the end. Not to be an excellent drive from both him and Oscar again, but Oscar managing to manage that medium compound tyre for 30 odd laps, which was fantastic.
The kahunas, the size of the kahunas that Piastri must have to go up a Rouge as fast as he did behind Lando and just go for it was to me one of the best bits of driving from the entire race.
Yeah, the speed differential was huge. I know Lando made a small mistake into turn one, which affected his drive on the way out, and so he got a little bit of tyre slip. But the idea there for Oscar would have been to use the draft and then get him down into the bus stop. He got past him just over the crest of the hill. There was such was the difference in speed. So, which meant Lando was under a little bit of pressure from Charles. Max couldn't get the job done on Charles either.
Do you think that Piastri just took in what Max did yesterday on the sprint?
Yeah,
and went, that worked.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do that.
I was
obviously they had the battery. Lando had the battery harvesting issue as well, but the speed up a Rouge and then into it. I think he was like, "Oh, that worked. I'm going to do that."
I was actually surprised to hear that. Really, and it may be that they need to look at it. The pole position at Spa is probably not as strong a position to be in as P2, obviously with the drafting and all that sort of stuff. I wonder if they need to start, and they won't because it's downhill, but I wonder if they need to start at the old start-finish line halfway down so that there isn't as much speed going through Eau Rouge the first time around, because it's a huge penalty to be the lead driver on the first lap.
Yeah, well, you're punching a hole in the air and you've got everyone behind you going up a massive elevation. So, and I don't know, those, when you watch Spa, the elevation from that doesn't look that big. But if anyone's not sure what that elevation is, jump onto Mercedes Instagram or Valtteri Bottas's Instagram, and he did a track walk and sort of spoken about it. But it is massive.
Yeah, it's a bit like how people misunderstand how steep Mount Panorama is at
Yeah,
Bathurst.
absolutely. Yeah, or like the bank at Zandvoort sort of thing in
Yep,
the
yep. Monza,
the
any of that sort of stuff that just looks like it's easy with the.
It doesn't look like anything when you're filming it or when you're watching the stream.
So obviously we've touched on Lewis's drive. A couple of drivers who got heavily penalised through the pit stops, and lots of pit stop mistakes this weekend as well. Obviously there was one on Lando's car. We saw that.
The front left again.
Again. I don't know. I wonder if it's just their thing they're using to balance things out, but hopefully not. But obviously Yuki got penalised. He dropped a long way down. Isaac Hadjar had a terrible weekend. That was just his qualifying effort was really good, but his weekend was just absolutely destroyed through the pit stops. I think he was one of a few drivers who tried to run a two-stop strategy and run the mediums in case there was a safety car or something like that, which didn't play out for him. And even Esteban.
Yeah. We had people waiting because of the influx of cars. We had people waiting in pit lane before they could actually get out, which was actually massively hurting them. So it's to see people waiting to be released from their pit because more people are coming in was just bonkers.
Yeah, so Kimi ended up with the fastest lap of the race, which doesn't count for anything this year, but just still interesting to see that he ended up with the fastest lap of the race. But obviously Lewis unable to get past Alexander Albon once he did his pit stop and got through, and George same sort of running in a bit of a solo race. Max not quite able to catch up to Charles. And of course, Lando, we're not going to do what the commentators did and just continually highlight the fact that he made two mistakes. But, the pit stop probably hurt him just as much as the mistakes did in terms of the time delay. And Oscar did a great job in managing his tyres. So
the drive both from Piastri and Norris, even with Norris's mistakes, because he was pushing hard on tyres that were degrading heavily. Can't even say the word. Degrading heavily. To get as close as he did and to push for as many laps as he did, to make two, I'm going to say semi-minor mistakes, and to pull it in, he ran wide and then had a lock up. So like the two mistakes that when it's that, and he's probably pushing as hard as he could with fuel and on hard tyres, it was a phenomenal drive.
And the lockup that you're talking about was on the second last lap. So if he hadn't locked it up, he would have been closer. You've got to have a go, and if he doesn't have a go at it, everyone's going to be like, "Oh, well, he should have had a go earlier."
But if he wasn't pushing as hard as he was, he wouldn't have locked up. So realistically, he wouldn't have got any closer anyway because he wouldn't have gone so hard into the corner. He wouldn't be pushing so hard. So he wouldn't have been. The results wouldn't have been the same anyway. So it's easy to say that he made two mistakes, and if he hadn't have made those mistakes, then he would have been somewhere else. But realistically, for him not to make those mistakes on tyres that are falling away from him that late in the race, he would need to back off a little bit and not push as hard.
The only thing I am going to say about that in the negative, and Luke, if you're listening, I know you'll be shaking your head. But the only negative thing I've got to say about Lando, and it's not about Lando specifically, but a lot of people would have seen or heard the classic, well, we need 16, or what was it, Michael, we need 26 seconds from you over the next 10 laps.
It just did 10 quali laps.
Did 10 quali laps. Would Lewis have made 3 mistakes? Would Michael Schumacher have made 3 mistakes? Would Nico Rosberg have made 3 mistakes? Would Jenson Button have made 3 mistakes? Ayrton Senna. So would a future world champion have made 3 mistakes in trying to achieve what he was trying to achieve? And did he push hard enough early enough?
I think he pushed too hard, too early.
That's what she said.
And didn't let the tyres come to him at the beginning, like I'm fairly sure his mechanic, his engineer told him to do, that he's naturally quick. And I think he overdrove the car early, which then ruined the tyres for the late push. It is interesting that you say that, and I'm glad you brought that up because the last 2 laps, Oscar went quicker than he had previously because he was saving some of those tires if he needed that.
Yep. Yeah, he did.
So-
He responded across the last 4 laps, I think, in terms of lap time. Hindered a little bit in terms of the gap because of the mistake from Lando. So it's not a poo-poo on Lando at all.
Not at all.
It's just the things you've got to do to be world champion.
I also want to just go back to the commentators quickly and say that they kept saying about these mistakes and mistakes and mistakes and mistakes and all that sort of stuff and what he was doing. I've completely lost my train of thought now, so I'm just going to rock on with that. I'll come back.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, if it comes back to you, I mean, so at the end, obviously, Oscar took out the win. Lando second with Charles Leclerc third. We had Max in fourth and George rounding out the top 5. I think that's a good result for George, to be brutally honest, with where the car's at. It was a nothing weekend for him in terms of just stuck in no man's land with not being able to do a lot. And then we will get to Rhys Ranksome, but Alexander Albon just silently continuing to be the lead driver at Williams. And I was thinking about this on the way home. We spoke about it at the top of the year, saying that Carlos probably thought he was going into that team to be the lead driver. And at the moment, Alex is absolutely the lead driver of that team and pointing them in the right direction.
They needed something this weekend. They've had a few consistent nothing weekends. They needed something. I was very, very shattered to see Sainz down in quali where he did and then finished 15th. But Albon up in 6th place was a great result for the team and a good result for him.
So before we get into Rhys Ranksome, let's have a look at how things currently stand then. We finally heard Martin Brundle say that it's a 2-horse race now. Ironically, Oscar is 81 points clear of Max Verstappen. Ironically, because of course he is number 81. So 266 points. He opened the gap a little bit further on Lando out to 16 points. Lando in second on 250 and then Max in third on 185. George in fourth on 157, and then we've got the 2 Ferraris at 139 and 109 for Leclerc and Hamilton. Let's just put into perspective there as well how much better perceived Leclerc's season is to Hamilton's, and there's only a 30-point gap between the two of them. When I saw that when I was looking through the results, I was actually surprised because I thought it feels like it should be bigger.
You do need to remember that Hamilton's had just some nothing weekends where he's still scoring points, and where Charles is sort of make or break, where he's either up there or he's nowhere.
Yeah.
I do just want to bring your attention to who is now running 9th in driver's standing.
I was going to get there. God,
No.
Patience, mate.
No.
Kimi Antonelli is still in 7th, 63 rookie, still the highest rated rookie, the only rookie inside the top 10. Alexander Albon on 54, just on what we were touching on. Mrs. Man, the Hulk, still sitting there in unbelievably in 9th position and equally unbelievable. And we will finally one day produce the meme of that mechanic on Drive to Survive. That Esteban Ocon is in 10th on 27 points. I mean, has it struck you yet that the person that he replaced in the top 10 was Lance Stroll? And they're equally 2 people that neither of us thought would actually be anywhere near the top 10 this year. So interesting. As I said, we said it's a 2-horse race probably 3 weeks ago or 3 races ago. But we're well and truly into that territory now. Lando's still a little bit at risk, but not really. I mean, there's only a 16-point gap between Oscar and Lando, but we're talking over 3 race wins for Max with either of the McLarens not scoring any points.
So how many races do we have left to go for 11. The year? Is it 10 or 11 races left
11
for the
to go.
Yep.
So, diminishing returns, reliability hasn't been an issue for McLaren. In fact, it hasn't really been an issue for anyone other than Mercedes that's in this sort of the top 5 battle. And even with proprietary rules, I can't see a situation where neither of the McLarens finish in 3 races, let alone 1. So, yeah, definitely a 2-horse race. The Constructors' Championship is well and truly over, which we'd already said. McLaren on top, 516 points, expanding the gap. Ferrari 248, 220 Mercedes, Red Bull 192. Are we saying the top 4 is set?
Yes.
Can you see a situation where Williams can continually outscore? I mean, Williams are in the same situation as Red Bull, where they've got one driver scoring points every weekend.
Yeah, that's the issue. Like I feel because Williams had a couple of no score weekends in a row, I feel like if they hadn't have had that and they had have had one or two drivers scoring when Max was the only one in there, but seeing seeing Yuki sort of come to life with the upgrades and at the quality, I feel like the Red Bull will be fourth. But in saying that as well, I don't think that's guaranteed. And I do still think that Red Bull may get third if Mercedes are heading the same direction, whilst Red Bull, they're sort of going two different sort of ways where they're getting two drivers and Mercedes aren't. So,
Yeah, I think it's the car, Mercedes. I don't think it's the drivers.
no, and like with the amount of like Antonelli's had a few DNFs that were completely not his fault.
Yeah, all engine related.
Correct. So again, I don't think it's the cars, but I don't think it's the drivers. So I do think it's the cars where Red Bull was the cars and they're fixing it, and Mercedes aren't responding as fast as some of the other teams.
Yeah, it's interesting. I disagree with you. I think Red Bull are in much bigger trouble than Mercedes are. I think Mercedes could probably flick a switch and they'll be back into it. Whereas Red Bull's car is designed for one driver. So I think Red Bull are going to struggle to keep pace with Ferrari and Mercedes. So we'll see. I mean, I called it, and I'm going to say I was wrong. But I said Red Bull might finish as low as 5th or 6th. And I think that the drop off from Williams means that that's not going to happen. And obviously, Kick Sauber scoring 43 points, so it's just mind boggling. So
could we see, if Williams continue and Sauber continue in the directions they are, could we see Sauber finishing 5th?
Yeah, it's very feasible.
Like that's
Racing Bulls continue to trip themselves over. Obviously, Liam had a good weekend again this week in the main race. He got some points. And Hadjar, that's his worst result in Formula One. So, and to say that of a rookie is quite good. He was so consistent at the start of the season. And he's just, like Kimi, he's just had a couple of things not go his way that aren't necessarily his fault. Today was all pit stop strategy. It had nothing to do with him, really.
I still do think my vote, and understand the points and Kimi and everything like that, my vote for Rookie of the Year is Hadjar. And not points related, but performance related in the car. So in terms of Antonelli driving a Mercedes,
so yeah, expectation versus reality sort of thing. Yeah,
correct.
Yeah.
I think Hadjar I've got my vote for Rookie of the Year doing in that car better than two more experienced Formula One drivers was really what really pushed me to sort of see that, even regardless of like what happened today. It's the same as when Kimi had the DNFs and things like that. So,
well, It's a good lead in. I don't want to get I don't want to cover too much of what might be in the mid-season show with, where that's at. But it is a good segue into Rhyss Ranks 'em, of course, the segment that most of you hang around for, which is to hear how Rhyss has ranked everybody's race today on a scale of A to fail. What are we doing today, mate? I haven't done any prep today. You're going to go top to bottom in results. What are you going to do, team by team?
No, yeah, I'm going to go top to so bottom to top.
Bottom to top. So you're going to start out with our man Isaac.
So start with Hadjar, and again, this is expectation reality, expectation equality versus starting. Unfortunately, whilst all of what I was saying, I have given Hadjar a D. So we have a few Ds. So I'm going to go Hadjar, Colin Pinto, Alonso, and Antonelli. I've all given Ds.
Given a D to Carlos Sainz.
I have given.
You reckon he did as well as Isaac Hadjar?
Multiple race winner, Carlos Sainz. Yes,
I reckon you're generous.
But Carlos Sainz.
It's not called Stu ranks him.
Obviously, starting P18, finishing 15. He did make up some places, I guess, but I've given them all Ds.
Yep, fair enough.
Esteban Ocon and Stroll are both Cs.
God.
I was quite surprised with both of those drivers, to be honest. I see, yep. Sonoda, I've given a D as well. There's lots of Ds. Hulkenberg and Bierman, I've given both Bs.
That's the fourth time Oliver Beeman's finished 11th.
He's got
He's only been in F1 this season.
He's equaled the record for winning, getting the same place, other than first.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Gasly, I've given a B to as well. I did not expect Gasly to still sort of be there, starting 13th and finishing 10th. I saw that. I was like, he's going to be 17th by the second lap. Anyway, Bortoletto and Lawson are both given Bs too. They were really, really good drives with a few years ago. Hamilton, I've given a C to. It was.
What's going on?
Now I'm gonna talk about this for a second. I've given him a C, and everyone's gonna be like, "Well, he made up certain positions," but just like what I said before, he is Lewis Hamilton in a Ferrari at Spa. He should be able to overtake other drivers, but then he got stuck behind a Williams.
It's a shitbox.
Can't say that.
Okay, yep.
Now we've got Albon, Russell, Verstappen, Leclerc, and Norris. I've all given A's to. And Piastri, I've given an A+. And that's this week on Rhys ranks him.
Wow.
Do you think there is a chance that before the end of this season, I will actually make your head explode?
That's pretty close today. I can't believe some of those rankings. Anyway, it's why I said it's not called Stu ranks him. It's called Rhys ranks him, and you got to sleep at night, so that's fine.
Upside down in my bat cave.
So. Upside down in your back cave, absolutely. No, look, I think overall probably pretty fair. I think there's only a couple there that I wouldn't agree with. I think again we'll get into it in the mid-season review where I think we'll probably both give our rankings on the drivers' seasons to date. But I think Carlos is running out of time for mine. So for him to get the same ranking as some of the other drivers, I was a bit surprised about. But he it's been coming, but we're into the second half of the season, so it needs to come a bit quicker from him, I think. But anyway, that's Rhys ranks him. Now I saw something, and I wanted to get a Rhys ranks him thing done. I said this before outside the show. I wanted to get a Rhys ranks him intro done. Didn't get time to get that done. I came up with something a little bit more simple. We keep coming across all this. We talk about it every now and again. All these stupid things that people do or say, like water is wet. And I came across one today, and I realized that the segment intro for this, we're going to call it Mama always said stupid is as stupid does. And of course, this is the perfect intro. It made me laugh. Anyway, that was the intro that we're going to run for. This probably get copyright struck now, and you won't hear what it says. But of course, that from the Bubba Gump Shrimp Factory. But so stupid is as stupid does. It's going to be a segment where we literally just highlight dumb stuff that people who should know better have said.
Now, there is something that I'm seeing in your notes here that is really not sat with you very well. No, that has on this segment.
Segment, yeah, absolutely there is. Yeah, absolutely. Zach Brown. Now, I've given him a hard time in the past about basically his role is to add more sponsors to the car because that's what it always felt like before they were successful. And he's done a great job. We've already covered that off as well. So, but he came out and said that he thinks that Lando is the coldest driver, the Cole Palmer of Formula One. Did anyone hear what Oscar said at all throughout today's race when he was asked about just about anything? Even his celebration was, pretty, plain, pretty sad sounding.
He did swear, so he's probably going to get a bit of a fine there, but I was excited to see that.
The coolest, coldest, calmest driver in Formula One, almost in Formula One history, is Oscar Piastri. He has no response to anything. Winning, losing, drawing, none of it. So for his own team principal to come out and say that his teammate is the coldest driver he's ever seen is absolutely one of the stupidest things I've ever heard him say.
Yeah, him and Kimi Räikkönen will go down.
Of course, Kimi, of course.
Yep, the just coldest drivers, like
the OG Iceman.
Absolutely, and you're right. We hear Lando getting coached. We hear Lando going, "What the hell?" We hear Lando doing all this sort of stuff, and we hear Oscar go, "Oh, we think these tires are going to make it to the end. What do you think?" Yeah, that's good.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
If you
Okay.
say so. Lando, you've just become Formula One world champion, loses it, Oscar. Oh, cool. That's nice. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the support. I'm going to go home now and have some SpaghettiOs and watch a movie. Like, he literally is the calmest person on the track. So this week's Stupid is as Stupid does is Zach Brown, and congratulations. We might even do an award at the end of the season for the stupidest thing that somebody has said all season. But he is the inaugural winner of Stupid is as Stupid does for this week. We've got to have a look at predictions from the Spa race. Sprint race, you predicted... Did you predict Russell? I think I might have got this back to front. Russell... No, you predicted Oscar. I predicted Russell. So neither of us got that right. Qualifying, Max and Oscar. So neither of us got that right either. The main race, Lewis or Max. Neither of us got that right. Biggest mover, Alonso or the Hulk. Depends which way you're looking up and down the grid. And surprise packet, Bortoletto or Lawson. Well, look, actually, both of them had a pretty darn reasonable weekend. Bortoletto got points.
8th to 9th for Lawson and Bortoletto. So, yeah.
Got points for the second time in his career. We'll
points, I reckon.
Call it a draw.
Yeah.
Hungaro Ring this weekend. We've got a back-to-back, which is great before we go into the summer break, where we've got a few weeks off, obviously, hence why it's called a summer break. Hungaro Ring last year, Oscar took out his maiden win. Importantly to note, Lando qualified on pole and choked. What are we thinking?
I'm so torn. I am incredibly torn as to what we will see.
Alanis Morissette.
Just with what is happening and what we're seeing, I would say I'd love to say it's going to be an Oscar clean sweep.
Of course, back to a traditional weekend.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an Oscar clean sweep pole win. However, we've got some hungry people getting to that top end, and we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk about Oscar, Lando, Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen, George Russell. We've got 5 drivers there that it could intertwine at any point. So I am going to go an Oscar clean sweep as my
the Oscar double. Yeah. I'm going to go with just because I can't do the Oscar double. I'm going to go with a Verstappen double, which will sound stupid in the context of not picking the other McLaren driver, but just for the sake of keeping it interesting. Surprise packet.
Science. What do they say?
I'm going to go with Lewis finally getting his head around the car. Because I can feel like he's having crap weekends and finishing 7th.
Yeah.
Like, so it's coming.
I'm saying he's a silent achiever. He's not at the back, but
he's the $1 billion man. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with the surprise. Is that a surprise packet though? Yeah, but maybe it is.
It is.
I'm going to get a surprise packet for him to get on the podium, because I think that would be a surprise. Because then he's going to outfinish his teammate. So so we've got the Science and Hamilton surprise packet, and then biggest mover. I mean, you always lock in the Hulk, so there's no point in even talking about that. Maybe back to more traditional qualifying position for him, so he can be the biggest mover. And I'm going to go with the oldest man on the grid, and go with Fernando Alonso as a biggest mover. So of course, it's a traditional weekend at the Hungaro Ring on this weekend. So you've got just the quali and the main race. I thought that the lack of practice actually probably hurt Spa a little bit, because we didn't get to see the hard, medium, compound play out and work out who's doing what, because they only had FP1 before qualifying. So see what happens at the Hungaro Ring, how that will play out with the upgrades on the cars and what have you, before we then head into summer break. Anything else from you, mate? It's been a bit of a hodgepodge episode for us. We haven't even mentioned following and all those other sorts of things that we normally mention, but this is what happens when they're back to back.
No, that's it. No, that's it for me. I think the weatherman emailed me earlier and said that he will be able to get a report to us before this weekend. So watch out for that on our socials as well.
Yeah, I heard he got detained at the airport for having unusual shaped objects in his hand luggage. It was very fucking weird.
He needs to stop taking stuff. He took a body bag, board. It's very strange.
Body bag. Wow.
A body bag. No wonder why he got pulled up.
No wonder he got pulled up. So yeah, he was struggling, but we'll see how he goes. As always, as I said, we are gunning for that live show for our final show of the year. So jump on the socials, TikTok and YouTube. Thanks for love on YouTube. Our YouTube numbers went off this week for some reason. I haven't even looked at why. I just noticed that tonight. So whoever's got our video stuck on their phone, if you could just leave it going, that would be great.
Just put it in the drawer and move on.
Just put it in the drawer and move on, not that drawer. The love's been great. So yeah, jump across all our socials, Facebook, Instagram. We're on Instagram now as well. I think it's the Top Step F1 or something like that. But the handles for it all are in our episode things and the snippets and the I've run out. It's the end of the day. Shorts and all that sort of stuff. It's all there. But look, we're most active on TikTok and YouTube. So jump on, give us a like and a follow there, so that we can do a live show on those platforms at the end of the year. Your love would be much appreciated from both of us.
Absolutely.
Other than that, we'll round out the week. Of course, there'll be another show next week after post Hungaro Ring, so keep an eye out for that one. As always, thank you for watching. This has been The Top Step with Rhys and Stu.
Thank you.
Well, that's the checkered flag. We're at the end of the race. Thanks for tuning in. You kept up the pace. Rhys and Stu are signing off today, but don't forget